Lindsey Graham, of all members, except maybe that weird guy from Florida, Randy Fine, who's like openly endorsing genocide. Lindsey Graham, of every member of Congress, can be relied upon at every public event, every photo opportunity, every time you run into him on the street, to be calling for the murder of somebody. Killing is the point of Lindsey Graham's political career. Trying to convince the rest of us to get on board with killing when we won't, screaming at us and calling us names, and you're the hater because you're not on board with killing this or that person. It's all about killing people. I want to give you a second example. This is Lindsey Graham, who's from the very beginning been a staunch supporter of really one of the most brutal dictators, let's just say it out loud, in Europe in 80 years, and that would be Zelensky, the unelected dictator of Ukraine, who's basically devoting half of his life to extinguishing Christianity in Ukraine. All of us are supposed to ignore that, but it's actually happening, putting priests in jail, killing his political opponents, murdering critics. That's happening right now. Lindsey Graham, of course, loves him because he's doing a lot of killing the right people, as Lindsey put it. Here's Lindsey Graham in a conversation with Zelensky. And sorry, another parenthetical note. Graham and Zelensky, both of whom are hardened warriors who run around in military uniforms talking about how tough they are, neither one will ever sit for an interview that isn't a kiss-ass interview. I've made about 100 requests to each of them. No. So they interview each other. But here's Lindsey Graham talking to Prime Minister Zelensky about killing. Watch.
Free or die.
Free or die.
Now you are free.
Yes.
And we will be.
And the Russians are dying.
It's the best money we've ever spent.
Thank you so much.
The Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent. Again, just encouraging you to think about what you're hearing for a second, because all of a sudden we live in a moment when a lot of people are espousing violence. It's funny, a year ago, if you had asked, a year on election night, if you had asked a lot of Trump voters, like, why are you voting for Trump? They would give positive reasons. I really think that the American government should serve American citizens. I believe in America first. But they would also, I think, say, I'm really afraid of the other guys. And two of the things that bother me most about them is they don't believe in free speech. They're constantly pushing for censorship. And their rhetoric is violent. They're encouraging violence. They encourage the BLM riots. They encourage violence all the time. And yet, a year later, here you have all these leading Republicans doing, what are they doing? Oh, demanding censorship. Should be fired for saying that. You shouldn't platform someone, meaning you shouldn't let them talk. And you shouldn't be allowed to talk to people we disagree with. All of a sudden, we're in charge of who you talk to. That's not totalitarian or anything. I can choose who you talk to. And we're going to just openly say that people we don't like should die. Should die. And here's Lindsey Graham taking joy in, and I'm quoting, Russians dying. Best money we ever spent. If you can spend money to make people die, that is money well spent. You freak. By the way, it's not, here are the 5 generals or 10 generals or list of people we think are responsible for war crimes in the Donbass. Okay. I mean, we can debate whether they are or not. Probably not, but maybe they are. And you could say the person who committed the crime is being punished. But Lindsey Graham, who has a completely non-Western understanding of justice, is saying because they are in this group, they must die. So that's the distinction. And this is the actual fight. It's a fight between people who understand justice the way that Christians understand justice, which is on an individual basis. We punish the guilty. We punish the person for committing the crime. We don't punish his kids, people who share the same last name or live down the street from him or look like him or are somehow related to him, speak the same language as him, because they didn't do anything wrong. We don't punish the innocent in Christianity because we believe in the human soul, the individual soul. We don't think we're judged as a group. We think we are judged as individuals. We'll stand alone before God to account for what we did. Not for what our kids did, not for what our grandparents did, not for what our neighbors did or our countrymen did or our leaders did, but for what we did. And that is the basis of Western justice. And it's being abandoned. And without a fight, because people don't understand what is happening, But make no mistake, the attitude that you just heard from Lindsey Graham is an Eastern understanding, a non-Christian understanding of justice. The Russians, what does that mean? What Russians? Just Russians. They're dying. Best money we ever spent. So you're watching two things. You're watching someone who's embraced collective punishment, as Israel has, as most of the world has. By the way, it's not just Israel, and it's not just Lindsey Graham. It's most countries at most times in history believed in collective punishment and collective reward. You're the favored group. You're the Tutsis, and you get a better deal or whatever. You're the chosen people in whatever society or religion, but you're the Brahmins. You get, because of your DNA, a better deal. The diversity, DEI, affirmative action, they're all species of the same kind of thinking, which is collective thinking, which denies the reality of the individual human soul. And it is therefore anti-Christian. And the entire West was set up as a bulwark against that kind of thinking. And that's why it succeeded. And that's why it's been free and prosperous and happy. And people like Lindsey Graham don't acknowledge that. And instead they worship death. And he has, as noted, a long career of doing this. This is not a conservative principle. This is not a Christian principle. This is a left-wing, atheist, agnostic at best principle. This is the I am God, I'll kill whom I want, when I want principle. And it's been on display his whole life. On January 6th, Lindsey Graham said to a Capitol Hill police officer, "You guys have guns. Why don't you shoot them all in the head? I wish you had." Shoot them all in the head? These aren't Russians. These are Americans. These are like 60-year-old ladies with pocket constitutions in their handbags and diabetes and bad knees who thought their election was stolen from them because they believe in the system. And so they marched on the Capitol. They didn't know at the time that there were like 230 FBI, whatever they were, agents, provocateurs, that the whole thing was managed. Some of us sensed that immediately. Lindsey Graham could find out. Maybe he has. He doesn't care. Those people, in some cases, lured into this trap, allowed into the Capitol by security. That's on videotape. We're not guessing. Those people should be executed because what? They made him scared, and he was scared on 9/11. Talk to his colleagues. I have. Lindsey Graham was terrified. Lindsey Graham is a physical coward. Of course he is. All the chicken hawks are. That's why they don't fight the wars, but they're also victims in this. When you call for the deaths of others, when you regard other people's lives as meaningless, when you think it's the best use of federal tax dollars to murder them, as he does, you become more afraid for your own life. It's always true. Dictators are always paranoid and afraid. They're never brave, ever. And Lindsey Graham is no different. Shoot them in the face. So the idea that Lindsey Graham is a conservative, with the caveat that, like, who even knows what a conservative is now? Conservative? Is Mark Levin a conservative? Is Dave Rubin, whoever that is he conservative? Okay, I guess. I mean, whatever. But if those are the people, Ted Cruz, conservative? I don't know, let's take a close look at Ted Cruz's life. What's conservative about it? Let's take a close look at Lindsey Graham's life. Is that conservative? And what's the reference point for that? What do you even mean? People like that have a completely different set of values on the deepest level, not on a surface level. We're not arguing here about tax rates, and whether we should allow reimportation of prescription drugs. I mean, this is not a policy debate. This is a debate that flows from deepest level convictions, from foundational beliefs. And that is evident in the way that people live. If I took a microscope to your life, what would I find? And in the case of almost every single warmonger, you find chaos and sadness and alienation and weird behavior and abusiveness and alcoholism. It's like they're a disaster. And so they're projecting outward the hate that they feel on, in some cases, entire populations, and increasingly on the American population. So when when you think of like a conservative as, buttoned down and has his act together and is committed to his family and his grandchildren, it's like, this is not that conservative. So are they conservatives? Who knows what they are? But the point is, Lindsey Graham has sided with the Democratic Party from his earliest days in the Congress. I mean, this is literally the guy who convinced John McCain to turn over the ridiculous Russiagate, the original Russiagate private investigator / intel agency files about Donald Trump, the P tape and the rest, to turn that over to the FBI as if it was real. Lindsey Graham believed that the 2020 election, or the 2016 election, was controlled by Russia. There was never any evidence for that at all. But he believed it. He said it. He believed Trump was a Russian agent. How did he wind up in the inner circle? I mean, God knows what's actually going on. But the point is, if that's the future of the Republican Party, it's going to be a very small party. And it's going to be a small party where like the worst people in the world are all like clustered together, jock sniffing, yelling at each other. Who knows what they do? But if you wonder like who Lindsey Graham actually is, what his gut instincts are, take a look at his first reaction to the death of George Floyd. And in case you don't remember that story, it was Memorial Day 2020. This convicted armed robber, home invader, drug addict, former porn star, tries to pass a counterfeit bill in a convenience store, like this poor convenience store owners in Minneapolis, and gets arrested for it and then promptly dies of a drug OD. That was all pretty obvious from day one, actually, but that wasn't Lindsey Graham's view at all. Here's what Lindsey Graham said about George Floyd.
The topic for the country is what to do after the death of Mr. Floyd, and what does the death of Mr. Floyd mean? Well, it's a long overdue wake-up call to the country that there are too many of these cases where African-American men die in police custody under fairly brutal circumstances. Mr. Floyd's case is outrageous on its face, but I think it speaks to a broader issue. I think this committee has the potential to reinforce things in society that will lead to better policing. And hopefully one day, if you're a young black man and the cops pull up behind you, you'll be wondering if you were going too fast rather than you're going to get beat up.
I mean, like, it is liberal white women like Lindsey Graham who are the real problem. I mean, here he is. What's his first instinct? By the way, that's June of 2020. That's like days after it happened. It's a congressional hearing. Kamala Harris is looking like, as a fake black person, I'm really concerned about what you're saying, Lindsey Graham. But he's saying exactly the same thing she would say. Exactly the same. What's the core assumption? That everything you saw on NBC News is true. The story that you were fed was absolutely true. And it was a cop problem. It wasn't George Floyd's. George Floyd had nothing to do with it. He was just like some random black guy who got pulled off the street for being black and executed, thank God, on camera so the rest of us saw it, but for being black. And this is like endemic in our society. It's like happily, every other black person in America is just like murdered by the cops, these damn white cops, making $50,000 a year. They have all the power. Yeah. So that was his gut reaction. He bought the whole thing. And there he is lecturing cops. Really, the problem is we need better policing in this country. Really? And of course, none of that turned out to be true. And, it was obvious to some of us on like day one that this was BS. It was a manufactured crisis designed to affect broad social change. It was a revolution, and it was. And it did affect broad social change. And hundreds of thousands of Americans have died of crime or drug ODs ever since because of the so-called reforms that people like Lindsey Graham screamed about, screeched about. He and the other liberal white ladies demanded that we re-educate the police because that's their fault. Imagine having that response. You know who else had that response? Nikki Haley had that response. Nikki Haley, also from South Carolina, also a crazed neocon. First thing she said, the riots happening are good for America. We need to watch what's happening and feel the pain because we deserve it. It's our fault. Really? When a convicted armed robber tries to pass a counterfeit bill at some convenience store and then dies of a fentanyl OD, it's our fault? Tell me how that works. But no one challenged her. No one challenged him. They immediately joined the chorus of the worst people in the world whose first instinct was to blame the people who did nothing wrong, in this case, the cops. And the consequences were terrible for American society, and no one ever called them to account for it. Now, why did they do that? Partly because all the ladies in a certain income class, or many of them, have just like the same gut reactions. And it's resentment toward men, and it's self-hatred, and it's guilt, and the desire to seem virtuous in public, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Books have been written about this, though not enough. But really, it has to do with the fact they don't care what happens to the United States, because it's not really that relevant, because that's not their goal. Their goal is not to improve the United States, which is why they haven't, not even a little bit. Their goal is to be power players in global politics because it makes them feel strong, to kill people because you get a real electric charge from that, and to serve the interests of Israel. Oh, it's an anti-Semitic slur. No, it's what they say out loud all the time. Here's Lindsey Graham. It's an amazing clip. I don't, no one even noticed this. Watch this. This is Lindsey Graham describing his personal travel schedule and how often he's in Israel. Watch this.
Well, this is my 5th visit, I think, since October the 7th. Mm-hmm. I'm here for a reason, to show support to you, my good friend, the elected leader of the state of Israel. I'm here also to take on, and I will talk about this tomorrow, a form of blood libel in 2024. That the state of Israel is using starvation as a weapon of war.
It's like an infomercial. It's like a badly shot infomercial for like prostate health cures or something. Super Beats or something. Like, stand there. Well, Dr. So-and-so, it's like, it's unbelievable. He is doing PR for a foreign country. And even Netanyahu, he's a prime minister of another country, looks a little bit embarrassed. Like, who is this weird kind of fawning guy? Is he going to touch my chest? I'm uncomfortable. You can feel that. But the whole point of Lindsey Graham being there, because he tells us it's the point, is to defend Israel from unfair criticism on the internet. Is that his job as a U.S. senator? To be unpaid, and we're guessing about the unpaid part, but I do sense he'd do it for free, to be a PR shill for a foreign prime minister, not even really the nation, another politician who's not an American. What the hell is going on? And then he just admits out loud, this is my 5th trip to Israel since October 7th. 5th trip. So this was in March, so that's 5 months after October 7th. This is in March of 2024. October 7th was 2023. So 5 months, 5 trips to Israel. That's 1 trip to Israel a month. Is there any chance that Lindsey Graham has been in the, state capital of South Carolina, Columbia, once a month during that time? No, there's no chance. In fact, he hasn't. By the way, Lindsey Graham was that same year in Ukraine more often than he was in Columbia, South Carolina. And what's he doing there this time? Well, he tells us he is there to refute the blood libel. It's not exactly clear what that is, but it's something to do with like anti-Semitism, or it means you hate the Jews, or you're defending the Holocaust, or something horrible. You're a Nazi. Something like totally beyond the pale. And the blood libel is that Israel is using starvation as a weapon of war. Now, who would say that? It does seem like a kind of a tough criticism. Well, let's see. Well, Israeli cabinet ministers, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, have both said that out loud. And they're cabinet members in the current government. And they have said, starve them out. Starve them out. Kill them. I mean, they're all the same. They're Palestinians. Their crime is their genetics. Their blood is tainted. We have magic blood. They have tainted blood. God loves us, hates them. And when they die, it's just a virtuous thing because they're not human. There's no doubt always and everywhere that kind of thinking about other people in terms of the group into which they were born, rather than in terms of what they do, what they're like as individuals, that kind of thinking leads to mass killing, genocide, every single time. And not just in Germany in the 40s, though it did lead to genocide there, but also in the Ottoman Empire in 1918, and also in Rwanda in 1994, and actually throughout history. When people start thinking of other people, not as people, but as components of some larger whole, whose value is determined by their blood, you will inevitably wind up killing all of them if you can, because they're not really people. And you will also wind up saying out loud that it's okay to starve their children to death as they have said repeatedly. And not just some random guy in the comments section on the Jerusalem Post, but at least 2 current cabinet members of the current government. But Lindsey Graham is telling us that's a blood libel? Why are you telling me that? I have internet access. Why are you saying that? Because you're a liar. And nothing you say is true, except what you say about yourself. And that's that you love another country more than you love your own, and you love killing more than you love living. And that's enough to know. You can't be a leader in the party I vote for. I'm sorry. And so with that in mind, and we hope you agree with that, as important as it is, politics is not the answer to this country's or man's greatest problem. The only solution is Jesus. Sorry, that's true. At its core, politics is a process of critiquing other people and getting them to change. Christianity is the opposite. Christianity begins with a call for you to change, me to change. It's called repentance, and it brings you back to God. When God is at the center, hearts change. Only that will lead to the end of abortion, the greatest atrocity this country's ever participated in. The normalizing of killing babies is a stain on this country. Our friends at Preborn are doing everything they can to stop it by providing free ultrasounds to pregnant women. Preborn has rescued over 380,000 children. Now, there are a lot of nonprofits out there. A lot of them call themselves pro-life, or I wouldn't trust all of them. Sorry. I do trust Preborn. I know them well. What they do works. Once a mother hears her child's heartbeat for the first time, she becomes twice as likely to have the baby. The ultrasound saves lives. It's $28 for you to sponsor an ultrasound and join Preborn's movement. Just call pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 keyword baby, or pull it up at preborn.com/Tucker. That's preborn.com/Tucker. Defend the preborn. There's nothing more worth it. We hope you'll join us. Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.